Okay, so the Eye of Darkness.
Not good. That's all I have to say.
Not good. But before we bitch about it, I want to give you guys like a really quick synopsis of what happens in the book. And so Luke's going to take over and just kind of give you guys a really quick breakdown.
So you're asking me to do this, and it was so. You used the word vanilla earlier. It was so vanilla that I'm having a hard time like remembering it. So essentially, the gist of everything is the High Republic exists.
We skip forward a year, right? From I think it's 1 year. It's 1 year after the
fall of Starlight.
The fall
Beacon.
of Starlight Beacon, yeah.
And essentially, Marchion Ro and the Nihil have created this zone that somehow no one can pass into, and essentially they've wreaked havoc in this space, and they essentially are the governing body that exists in that area. The only thing is Marchion Ro doesn't care about governing, and they essentially just take from all the planets.
It's basically like the Wild West.
Yeah,
on the
it's
other
essentially
side.
the Wild West. And then
It's called the Occlusion Zone.
There's like Jedi Porter that are stuck in the Occlusion Zone, and then Avar Kriss that's stuck in there too. And then they're essentially doing like small little hero type jobs where like Avar spends an entire day like sacrificing herself almost just to get some grain to these, I think, Neimoidians. I can't remember.
I think they were. Yeah, it might have been.
And then they get the grain shipment, and they're like, "Okay, like when's our next shipment coming in?" And Avar's like, "It's not. Like you're probably gonna die in 2 weeks, you know." And so it's super grave in the zone, and then. A couple big players, Elzar Man is still within like the High Republic Coruscant area, right? And then he's stressing out because now he's essentially in charge and doesn't deem himself.
And he's in love with
worthy.
Avar, and he wants to go save Avar.
Exactly. And that's pretty much the main gist of it, right?
Yeah, basically all that happens in the book is you find out about this Occlusion Zone, and all that happens is the Republic at one point. Marchion Ro publicly executes a Jedi Master. He publicly executes a Jedi Master that's on the Jedi Council by using one of the Nameless.
Yeah, the Force Eater.
And so everybody in the galaxy gets to literally see the name, and we find out because we don't see in the other books, but the Nameless like straight up like lay on top of the Jedi and like suck the Force out of him with
and
like
then
these
turn into
tendrils.
husks.
So you get to see one of them turn into
that
husks.
part's really cool.
That part's cool, but like basically the Republic responds by. And then Marchion Ro sends one of his people to like fake plea for peace, even though he knows they'll get told no.
Right.
And then like the Republic does this stupid thing where they try to attack the wall, and it doesn't work, and they end up losing like a bunch of people as a result.
And the idea behind that too is this wall is impenetrable, right? So then they realize, and it's self-healing somehow.
Yeah.
The scale is insane.
It doesn't make any
makes no sense. And that's that's the big issue that we have with it.
Yeah.
But anyways, on a side note, so they bombard this wall and force field, we'll call it, and then they put a hole in it, and they think that the hole is going to be there for long enough before it self-repairs, and that they're going to be able to get a bunch of ships through it. Well, the ships just drive into the wall, and then a bunch of people
and everyone who's in it dies. Which I want to get back to that later, because like that I have a problem with too, which we'll get to. Just the idea of the idea of like the gravity well generator versus like it actually destroying a ship, which is a whole other concept. But basically they fail miserably, and the climax of the book is literally like Avar escapes. That's it. Like Avar escapes the Occlusion Zone and gets to. Oh, and there's one other thing. In response to the attack on the wall, Marchion Ro extends the boundary, like moves the wall further into Republic territory.
Because that's super easy to do.
Yeah, just move your wall,
which is just millions of or thousands of light years.
Yeah. Like did they all jump to light speed? Like it literally makes no sense the way that it works. But like Avar Kriss escapes, and apparently that's hope because now the Jedi have one of their leaders back. But like it is
like almost nothing happens. Like literally, and like so I thought
one other major thing that we've missed. Master Yoda brings in like a fallen dark Jedi who's extended his life to hundreds of years using the dark side, who is obsessed with finding out how to get rid of the Nameless because he views them as a threat to all Force users. And Yoda says that they're going to work with this guy to help destroy the Nameless.
And then nothing happens with him.
Yeah, and then nothing happens with him.
Apparently it's in reserve for the next book, which, take your time, please.
Dude, it's ridiculous. And like, Let's start with Marchion Ro.
Okay.
He is such a profoundly uninteresting villain, in my opinion.
So I disagree. So I think he's a really cool villain. I think the Nihil are interesting. To your point, though, the whole entire ragtag villain thing with pieced together ships have been completely overplayed in like any type of cinematic piece. Whether it be, like Jason and I almost view books and audiobooks as like pieces of cinema almost.
Yeah, of course.
So but they've been overplayed. I think though if the scale was correct, I think he'd be an extremely interesting and compelling character. I really do. The scale is just completely jacked. And I don't know if and we've harped on this over the last like weeks since we've been leading into this review. So like we don't need to talk about it all that much. But this book would have been actually incredible, in my opinion, if it would have happened on one world or a few worlds. It would have made so much more sense if the occlusion zone was way smaller.
Yeah.
And if
instead of a galaxy spanning wall of these like buoys essentially that block everybody.
Why don't you like Markion though?
So the audiobook doesn't do him any favors either because like they make him sound like a whiny little bitch, but he is such a whiny little bitch. And the other thing,
he's so lost.
It's like, and just again, like there's no, you know what? I was literally thinking about this morning. You know, like in every single like secret agent movie of all time, it's like, you mean to tell me that guy has 3 nuclear weapons that he stole from some government?
Right.
And wait, he wants to set them off so that he can destabilize the world so that they can like start from scratch or some shit like that. It's like the most like overplayed thing of all time.
True.
And like,
that's a really good point.
There's these moments where, so her name is Gira Staros, but she's like this former senator that wants to, she's the one who ends up going on the diplomatic mission to the Republic and gets turned down because she basically just asks for the Nile to have a seat in the Senate, essentially.
And everyone's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, they're like, "What? You just publicly executed a Jedi master?"
Yeah, like what are we talking about?
Yeah. So, but what's stupid about it is like Gira Staros will be like, "What's your plan?" Like,
yeah.
Okay,
fill me in.
What are we gonna do? Like, how do we govern these people? Like, they're suffering, they're dying.
She
everywhere.
legit
like,
wants to be a politician.
Yeah,
she wants to be in charge and be a politician.
Yeah, she's like, why don't we? You're saying the Republic's corrupt and the Jedi are evil. Like, why don't we build something different here? And Markion's like, no, I just want to kill the Jedi. Like, nah.
He just wants to destabilize and be angry. He just he just sits and he's just angry.
He's just
super
angry.
Weird. And talk about like a lost opportunity with a bunch of things. Like, for example, the Nameless. They call them Force Eaters. Like these are essentially, animals that can just decimate a Jedi. Like the amount of interest that could circulate for me is incredible. And then they're just on a chain, just sitting around Markion, just being his little lapdog.
And they're also just not that big of a threat to me. Like, the Nameless are really interesting, but they're not that big of a threat from the standpoint of, like, it would just be so difficult to actually, like, unleash them in any sort of real sense.
Like high capacity.
And the easy fix would just be literally what the Clone Wars were, which is, like, just combine Jedi with actual soldiers.
Right, and then exactly.
And then you like there's just nothing.
True.
There's nothing that like really, really grabs my attention in a real way in this particular book series, and that to me is kind of a bummer.
Right.
But that said, like it did feel like this book in a lot of ways like was a setup book for the next one.
100%.
I think they could have told the entire story of this book in a chapter at the beginning of another book.
You're 100% right.
It honestly, like, you said it was the longest it's ever taken me to finish an audiobook. It's because it was a chore to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
It was profoundly uninteresting. There's this other thing too. They make the Jedi seem like so unlikable in this book from the standpoint of their like pious, like over, like they lean so hard into this like every Jedi just wants to save one more life. And there's something like, I don't know how else to describe it other than to say that like they make the Jedi seem like such more complex, dark, like they're light, but they're also
selfish.
Dark. They're flawed.
Self-serving.
Self-serving. Like the Jedi are just portrayed cinematically so much better than they are in this High Republic. Like the High Republic literally makes the Jedi into a bunch of pretentious douchebags.
Yeah. Dude, you're totally right.
It's so like every time like Avar Kriss is like, I just need to bring more grain to these people, and you're like, okay, like
Avar.
I'm not even saying that that's bad necessarily. It's like, but it's not good. It's not good material for an entertainment product.
Agreed.
Like it's not interesting.
Are there any redeeming things other than the Nameless that you liked about this book? Like, is there anything that was like, oh yeah, I liked how they did that?
I mean, Elzar. If Elzar turned to the dark side, that would be interesting.
That'd be interesting. Avar and Elzar's love affair is interesting to me.
I feel like they're building Elzar towards a collapse of some kind. Don't you think? Like
Perhaps,
that dude is a complete and total mess in every book.
Oh yeah, he has zero self-confidence, and he's leading the galaxy right now. Yeah, I mean, there's very few things in the book that I thought were really good. Again, like the scale is just completely ruined. Disney needs to chill out with its scale because they're ruining things. Nothing is now comparable to what the Nile did. It's like, how are the Nile doing the biggest thing that's ever happened in the galaxy? A ragtag group with a young leader who has zero rudder and has no clue what his plan is. How is that the biggest group that's tormenting all of society?
Well,
in that
like
galaxy?
we talked about this the last time we talked about it, but it's like the idea. This is not a political take at all. It's just like, regardless of whether or not you think there should be a wall at the southern border, logistically, it's extremely difficult to actually do.
That's over the span of a few states.
Yeah, it's over the span of a few states,
Let
and it's
alone
like,
an
and
entire
the U.S.
galaxy.
government too is like, if there was an entity that was set up to be able to to handle a project like that, it would be the U.S. And like, even for them, it's completely impractical.
Right.
And like, yet we're supposed to believe that this ragtag group of raiders
Yeah.
has built a galaxy-spanning wall.
It's ridiculous.
And like, what's crazy too with the wall is, and this really bothers me, because like, Timothy Zahn has done a really good job of this, but it's something that's been in Star Wars in Rebels. It's something that we've seen in a bunch of different capacities, but the idea of a gravity well generator, essentially like something that pulls ships out of hyperspace and prevents them from passing a point.
Right.
And what happens in every one of these situations is, apparently, from what I understand, your hyperdrive will sense that there is a gravity well, and it causes it to automatically shut off, and that's what causes it to stop.
And it can rip ships apart,
it
violently pulls them out of space.
It violently pulls them out of space, and they're disoriented.
Hyperspace,
But every single other, it's such a. The problem I have with it is like the gravity well generator did not destroy ships.
I think though, like they were describing like legitimate, like impermeable wall. Right?
No. So that's the thing. So was it? I don't think it was an impermeable wall. They said it like pulls them out of hyperspace and rips the ships apart. And like, that's what I don't understand. Because like, literally, Grand Admiral Thrawn, in both the sequel trilogy and in the in the Thrawn trilogy and in the prequel trilogy, which is the Ascendancy series, he makes regular use of gravity well generators as a means with which to help ships have a more. Because one of the things they talk about is like, micro jumps and other hyperspace jumps, it's extremely difficult to be precise with coming out of hyperspace. Right. And the gravity well generator has such a firm barrier of the gravity well, it can pull ships out of hyperspace at a perfect spot.
Yeah.
And so
it's like a soft closed drawer.
Yeah.
It's like
that's exactly the way
you can
to
like
put it.
slam a drawer close, and as soon as it hits the soft close, it just slows down and
that's
comes to a nice
great way
slow,
to put it.
Yeah.
And so like, I had a problem with it because I wanted to be like, I didn't understand until that scene because basically Elzar Mann is leading this assault, and they poke this hole through the thing, and then all these ships start jumping through, and then they all just come out of hyperspace in pieces, and everyone's dead.
Explode.
And it just doesn't make sense with anything else in Star Wars. And again, the scale is ridiculous. There's no way they'd be able to do that.
And then now the scale's ruined for all of eternity. Like it's Jason and I have talked about Star Wars being sacred, and that's what's so frustrating about this is because like the plot, the entire plot of Star Wars is in people's hands who don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's driving us absolutely insane. And thank God that Dave Filoni's now like actually in charge. But now like this scale has ruined everything. It's ruined the whole entire, like we were just talking about how cool the Trade Federation was and how like they were blockading a single planet, Naboo. And when Sidious was talking to who's the leader of the Trade Federation in Plagueis?
Isn't it still the same guy from the
actual movie?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I forget his name, but anyways,
Newt Gunray.
Yeah, he's telling him Sidious is like, hey, you need to move your ships to do this blockade, and he's like, you know how expensive that's going to be? He's like, we can't take a hit like that. A single planet, Jay.
Yeah,
a single planet, let alone a freaking like half of a galaxy.
They talk so much like in such a more practical way in play. Like little things are like during the Senate meeting, they're like, why if we're going to need a massive system defense force in every single system in order to protect from all these different things, like why wouldn't we have a galaxy spanning military and all like, and they start to everything is so practical and laid out in Plagueis, and this book just doesn't have that. And I will say this,
George Lucas,
I'm so thankful that this is only books right now.
Yeah.
And like if we get to Acolyte and it's a lot of Nihil Marchion Ro bullshit, I'm gonna be so upset. I'm gonna be so upset.
You might have to get ready for that.
Well, what's concerning too is if I haven't looked, but I don't think the next High Republic book comes out until like fall of next year, which I believe is after the Acolyte releases.
I see.
So I wonder if this book is setting up the Acolyte, and it's like, okay, all right,
gross.
Marchion Ro, yay, this is gonna be fun, man.
Yeah. Dude, well. We'll see.
Oh, gosh. All right, guys. That's all we have for today. As always, we appreciate you guys for supporting the show. And we will see you guys next week for a Rebel Moon breakdown.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.